Kevin, welcome to HubShots. It's great to have you here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here with you guys. It's been a long time coming. I've known you guys for a number of years now, so I'm excited to be here and connecting and chatting with the both of you.
Great. So do you want to tell us how you got started?
Sure. How I got started with HubSpot is actually kind of a funny story because I went kicking and screaming into the HubSpot ecosystem. So about 6 or 7 years ago, I was a co-founder of a startup completely not related to HubSpot whatsoever. But our marketing team at the time was starting to move over a lot of our inbound content, our blog content, landing page experiments, and the like to the HubSpot platform. And at that time, we were, a startup. We maybe had 6, 7 engineers. We had probably about 4 or 5 marketers. I was on the design team heading up design, and I had another designer as well. And so the kicking and screaming part goes in where I was very much used to WordPress and have been using the WordPress platform for years. And so as my marketing team was wanting to move everything over to HubSpot, I was like, I don't know HubSpot. How am I going to do anything here? How can I help you guys? And so I was adamant about not using it until finally everyone was like, no, we have to use this. And so I told the guys, okay, guys, go ahead and look for a template. They have a marketplace. Let's find a template that we could use and we'll just make it on brand so it's aesthetically pleasing and goes with our guidelines. And so the head of marketing kept sending me these templates. And I was like, nope, not going to use that one. Nope. And so during that time in my life, I was actually also starting to listen to Pat Flynn. He runs a podcast called Smart Passive Income. And I was just all enthralled with this idea of creating passive income streams. So what I decided to do is create a template. That's what they were called at the time, not themes as they're called today. I decided to create a template for my marketing team to use that was aesthetically pleasing the way that I would want it to look and would allow them to run experiments and not utilize our development resources or even my design team. So because I was like, hey, they have a marketplace. Let me put this template that my marketing team is using into the marketplace and see what happens. And I kid you not, I remember the first morning that I woke up and I saw that little notification on my phone from PayPal saying I made $127 from this template. And I was like, oh my God, Pat Flynn was right. Like, this actually works. And it was in that moment where I was like, this is pretty incredible. Let's just see if I can create a few more templates and create some extra income for my wife and I to go on vacation. And over that next month, I created a few more templates. And at the end of that month, I think I made about $1,000 in passive income. And I was just blown away. I mean, here I am, I have a full company and a full team, and suddenly I've got an extra $1,000 in my bank account, and I was just over the moon. As I kind of continued, I just iterated, being that I come from a product design background and I'm all about customer experience, iterating on the product, and the product is the templates, and just continually improving it. And I have been doing that for the past 7 years now to get clean to the actual state that it's in today, which is a pretty robust, if I do say so myself, theme that helps other marketers really leverage the platform.
Well, I'll just say that certainly makes sense for me now, because I've actually wondered how it's become so good overnight. Turns out overnight is 7 years, and I guess time flies. That makes sense because it is very polished. It is, yeah. And we're big fans. I'll just say this at the start of the show because we're big fans of the clean theme, hence the reason we actually asked you onto the show, Kevin. So I think we've all agreed we're not going to make this into an ad for clean theme, but we will highlight a few of the things around it. And in particular later in the show when it talks about what are some of the features that HubSpot's enabling and the CMS. But yeah, I certainly feel that the theme is very feature rich, but very polished in the sense that we rarely find bugs. And I guess that shows from your history. I'm interested to know, do you think part of that though is because it's you looking after it? And compare that to your earlier history with a team and maybe a team of engineers. Is coordinating changes and keeping quality, is that easier, do you feel? And what are the advantages and disadvantages there?
I've always taken the mindset of being very close with customers. In my last startup, it was with our user base. And I think that the unique thing that I found is the opportunities to understand the pain points or the frustrations or the things that make a product or a service unintuitive are opportunities to actually make things even better and create a sort of respect from potential customers, certainly, and existing customers, knowing that the things that they're actually saying, the challenges that they're expressing, there's something being done about them. And it's that real keen eye for taking a customer first approach in everything that I do, especially related to HubSpot and the clean theme and all that, has really helped me separate myself from the pack, I believe. And I'm also very obsessive about it. Like I thoroughly enjoy doing this stuff. There are times where I'm pulling my hair out, I'm growing more gray hair, but I love a challenge. And this is one of those things that allows me to sink my teeth into a variety of different challenges, whether it's a bug, whether it's something that's changed in HubSpot that then I have to actually go and try to figure out and make accommodations for. And it's part of the process.
So Kevin, now I understand you're from a design and product background, but I guess when you're thinking about HubSpot themes, there's a design element and a coding element, right? So there's a technical element to it. How have you taught yourself this? Have you built a great team to build a theme? How have you gone about that?
Frankly, I am self-taught on the programming or engineering side. I have been doing web design development for the greater part of 20 years. One of my original businesses 10 or 15 years ago was a design branding development agency. And it was just myself and a very small team. And I knew that in order to be nimble, sure, I could create some great looking mock-ups in Photoshop or whatever I was using at the time. But in order to be very dangerous, being able to actually understand front-end engineering, HTML, CSS, some level of JavaScript was going to allow me to really separate myself as a designer. They call people like me unicorns, or at least they used to, not to give myself a pat on the back, but it's pretty rare when you can find a designer that has any sort of knowledge on the programming side, or a programmer that has knowledge on the UX or the UI design side. And so, I don't know. Honestly, my mom was super creative and my dad was super nerdy and technical, and I kind of got the hybrid in between the two and, kind of live in the middle.
All right. So tell us, what are some of the good parts about CMS?
Frankly, I have seen the CMS evolve over the past 5-6 years, and over the past 2, holy moly, it has gotten so much better, and it's still improving. It's still got some ways to go, but it is just miles ahead of where it's been since I started with HubSpot. Ultimately, the reason that I have not only recommended the HubSpot CMS more and more to friends and other people that are running small businesses is the intuitiveness of the drag and drop system. It's funny because back when I was running a design and development agency, we were charging $20, $30, $50, $100,000 for a pretty simple marketing website. Whereas nowadays, a CMS like HubSpot, utilizing a theme, anyone can pick up and really start running at building a website that they can truly own the keys of and do it in a matter of days or weeks. And so that's one of the things that I really love about how HubSpot has really geared their CMS. They're really building it for marketers and for marketing teams so that they're not having to tap on the shoulder of their development team that is maybe either working on core product or an app experience and not using those resources. Rather, the marketing team can really own, manage, optimize, and run with the marketing website to, gain leads, generate interest, you name it. And so that's where I've seen the HubSpot CMS itself excel. Not to mention, this is just a quick shout out to the HubSpot product team who is working on the CMS and the marketplace. I've been really impressed with just how hands-on they are with customers, theme developers like myself. They're really doing a good job of listening and implementing. And again, that's just part of my own ethos. So to be aligned with a company like HubSpot that has that in their ethos as well is just more inspiration and motivation for me to keep going.
We're actually going to talk a little bit later about the future of HubSpot CMS, but I just do want to reflect on the past. I'll make a comment. Tell me if you agree with this experience, because I felt HubSpot has played a game of catch up in a number of areas on the CMS. So the drag and drop builder, I feel that was a long time coming compared to other tools, say on email. You've had other tools like MailChimp that have had that for a while, and then WordPress has had drag and drop in their website experience for years. And it feels like, oh, okay, HubSpot caught up. And then I think the obvious one, maybe for us, maybe not for marketers, but in general, is the addition of child themes. That's something that WordPress has had for, I'm going to say a decade, might not be that long, but it's certainly a long time. And it's only just come out in HubSpot. And so my view is HubSpot's played catch up, which is perhaps a criticism, but the flip side is when they catch up, they do it well. Is that your experience? Would you agree with that? Or what's your view of the history?
Sure. So yes, I do agree that they've played some aspect of catch up with their CMS specifically. But the way that I've thought through that is HubSpot really didn't originate as a CMS as their core offering. They were very much geared towards their CRM product, really helping sales teams understand and optimize their pipeline. And it's really been only in the last 2 or 3 years where I think they've done one of two things. One, they're trying to capture more of the market, and they know that bringing everyone under one umbrella so that their entire marketing team isn't going from another CMS and then syncing with their CRM and have two disparate products. They're trying to gain more market share by actually adding more and more attention and investment, internal team investment into their different products, CMS being one of them. I do get frustrated, certainly at times, with this aspect, even in the last 2 years as they've come to more fully developed the CMS side of things, introduced themes, shortly then followed by child themes. Believe me, there have been times where I'm like, why didn't you just do this all at once? But also at the same time, I do understand running and working on a product team where you're really trying to execute fast, but find that line of what can we ship that is stable, sturdy, and tested, and that is going to provide value to our customer. And then how can we follow that up with interviews to understand either what's missing or what the highest priority item going into the product is going to be, and then move on that. So I have a little bit of sympathy only because I've been in those roles before, but there's definite times where I have grit my teeth at the fact that child themes, like you pointed out, wasn't released with themes, because I feel the frustration myself. I feel the frustration that customers have had specifically with that feature set regarding themes. But as I mentioned earlier, I've seen the proof in the pudding of how intentional HubSpot and their product team is with reaching out and trying to move fast on the right things. And I'm hoping that they continue at this pace. And if they do, I think in the coming years, we're going to see a really, really robust CMS that we're all extremely excited about. I mean, I'm excited now, but I think we're going to be even more excited as more and more comes to fruition in their roadmap.
I guess the flip side of the way that HubSpot's rolled that out, and the fact that, well, they control the platform, so there's no option like WordPress is to self-host and things like that. I want to call back to an earlier comment you made in passing just around, well, you might be fixing bugs, that some of them are yours, some of them are HubSpot's. I'm interested how much of the changes that you need to make are because HubSpot changes the underlying platform. And the reason I ask that is because if I do compare to WordPress, sure, they've had these features for years, but the number of times an upgrade to WordPress or a theme or something like it breaks sites, it's becoming an increasing concern for a lot of our clients. It's one of the reasons we're pushing a lot HubSpot CMS. So that's a little bit of context. But my question is, yeah, that platform, sure, they might be playing catch up. It feels like when they do it well. But from your side, is that the case? Or how much change goes on that actually impacts, well, your business and therefore clients of your business?
Yeah, quite frankly, as it relates to core platform changes that they're introducing that either breaks the theme that I've developed and or any other customer sites, it's very few and far between in my experience. Now, have there been little things that have come up with something that they push live? Certainly. But they're very, very fast to fix that and push up a fix. Never in my experience so far, utilizing the HubSpot CMS and developing for it, have I come across something that was scorched earth detrimental to either the theme and or any other customer accounts. And that's a godsend as far as I'm concerned, because I mean, I'd love to hear more about your experience leveraging WordPress, but I've had those same exact things that happen to my own websites where, a plugin breaks or two plugins aren't compatible, and suddenly like you're just troubleshooting for days or trying to find a developer that can troubleshoot WordPress, which I mean is a shot in the dark as well. Just trying to scour through all the millions of them. Whereas HubSpot, I found there's that assurance that if there is something that happens that breaks on a website or something detrimental, like usually like they're already on top of it by the time you're adding a support request or emailing me. And so for the most part, when it comes to anything that they're changing and how that affects me and my business, it's mostly when they're making large improvements. So the introduction of themes was like a big shift, for me to reprogram this entire code set to, move towards this theme, which I'm very happy that I did. Or as they're introducing more micro level features. One that comes to mind, and I think you guys might have talked about this on another podcast, had to do with lazy image loading and how they started to introduce more of that to help with performance. So as they start to introduce, new features, it's more of, okay, how can I participate in the beta programs that they have, understand how these things work and how I can implement them into the theme. So it's tested and then timely delivered to customers like yourselves or clients that, the two of you might have. One question that I have for the both of you on this note, because you're working with clients that are moving from WordPress to maybe HubSpot. How are you either pitching that, or how are you trying to talk them through what would normally be a pretty major decision for an organization to shift in such a degree? How do you talk through that? How do you rationalize that?
So I think for us, the first thing is the ease of use. Like I think one of the things that people, once they get used to using HubSpot, and I say you can have this same experience managing a website, you don't have to talk to developers or do things. That's a really big part. The other part is really speed, Kevin. That's really been one of the things that we have seen that has changed everything. The speed to market that marketing teams, marketing managers can do things is significantly increased. And that, like, I have never had anyone go to CMS and say, there was a regretful choice I made. They're always like, this is so good. And even people have stuck around, had sites redesigned and roll things out. And just even that whole process of redesign, having a staging area, being able to preview it to the business, being able to fully test it, roll it out, make it live, massive difference. And just have all your data in one place and bring it all together is amazing. And I think the other big differentiator is the ability to use all the marketing features, like with smart content, with CTAs, with all the split testing, which I'm sure you can do on other platforms, but is just so easily managed within HubSpot.
Yeah, spot on. One quick thing that just came to mind as you were talking through the speed. The golden question that I always get, and I'm sure you both get this as well, is, how long is it going to take me to build my website, right? No context, no how many pages your website is, but it's just like, how long is it going to take me? Like, I don't know, but one of the things that I always point to when I get that question that really speaks volumes about the HubSpot CMS itself is, I've had this one customer, this woman, non-technical, smart, very smart woman. She put up her own marketing website, not a big site, 5 to 7 pages, including a blog. She did it herself in like 3 or 4 days, and it was good. And it's that speed of execution, I think, is the most important part, especially in today's day and age. Like, we don't have a month, 2 months, 3 months to either launch a site or add a page or any of this thing. We need to be able to move at lightning speed. And so I'm glad to hear that's part of your pitch when you're starting to, convert people over.
I'll add a few comments to that because I think for us moving clients over, there's a couple of cases, and I suspect this will be for listeners who are maybe considering this, because a lot of our clients still are on WordPress, and then some are moving on their own accord to HubSpot CMS, and then others we're chatting with it about why. And so to your question is, why would we recommend it? There's actually a few areas. One is, well, does it meet their requirements? If you've got a simple marketing site, there's probably no barriers. But there are situations, and this is a question we'll ask you later, are there situations where you wouldn't move to HubSpot CMS? And there's still some of those, and we can chat what those are. But I'll give you simple examples. It's very hard to get an Instagram feed into, say, HubSpot CMS when they change API things, whereas WordPress will have, plugins and workarounds for it. So there's some scenarios like that. There's also existing functionality and integrations with the systems. All of those areas where maybe they've got it built, custom built WordPress, we won't even try and recommend it. We'll go, look, it's not worth your effort, that kind of thing. But in the cases where it is a move, it's normally a transition piece. So they've probably got HubSpot in some form. They're creating a few landing pages in HubSpot. And then they're like, well, so hang on, we've got landing pages here. Why is the website so different to use? And why can't I see those pages? And so it's a very easy transition. So it's actually the best thing for it. It's actually not about features. It's actually more to the points you've both made. It's just ease of use. There is that speed thing. For our clients, we don't find the speed to go live is a big consideration. Most of the larger clients, they're happy with the time frame. Just tell us what the time frame is. But it's that transition where it's like, this makes it all involved. So there's less training. The other thing, though, from our side, and this is less so for the clients, although they get an indirect benefit, is for our agency, it's like just trying to look after too many things. So we've really tried to focus down. We had a team looking after WordPress and then another team doing HubSpot stuff. It's like, this is inefficient. I'm all about efficiency. Let's just focus on HubSpot stuff. And so the benefit for clients is we're experts at HubSpot. Get your platform there. You'll actually get a better service from us rather than 2 teams or 2 agencies and things like that. So it's not only technical pieces, is I guess what I'm saying. It's also the engagement and ongoing support you get. And I think that's really why we're pushing so hard on CMS. And as you were talking about, their improvements are coming and they continue to get better. And when they are released, there's not a jarring, hang on, the site's gone down. And that is in people's minds. So I think all agencies say this. They rarely get clients calling them up to thank them for doing a good job. But as soon as the site is impacted, the phone's ringing. As you mentioned earlier, we haven't really, apart from some very public outages that HubSpot has had probably once or twice over the last couple of years, very rare has a site gone down. Whereas on WordPress, we're seeing that increasingly. And I just don't think we have the skills or even the interest in trying to stay skilled just to keep a site up. We're having team members go in every week just to check plugin updates and, we better move to staging first, upgrade the plugins, make sure it doesn't break it. Then we can update live. That's a common process. So there's all those things. I know that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but it all comes back to not only technical, but service and outcomes, I think, for clients. And that's where we see the benefit. I did want to go back and just quickly touch on one thing. Can you, before I forget, can you just quickly explain the difference between templates and themes? You talked about that transition. A lot of listeners might not be familiar with all of that involved.
Craig, I'm going to do my very best because, quite frankly, the nomenclature between templates and themes was very convoluted. So, pre the term theme, which got introduced maybe about 2 years ago, if my memory serves, the way that the CMS worked is it leveraged what HubSpot called a template. And back then, you could create basically what would be called a template pack, which was a series of templates that would, essentially be a theme, but they weren't calling it themes back then. And so fast forward to just a couple years ago, HubSpot released the concept of themes. And themes gives a much better way to control the entire brand aspect of building a website. So with the introduction of themes, you got the introduction of basically your brand or your theme settings, which was a global way to control the style elements, such as your fonts, your button sizes, colors, things like that, across all of the templates which exist in that theme. The way that I look at it from a hierarchy is you have a theme which contains all the templates. Within those templates, you have all of the custom modules, which are the little bits of pieces that make up the actual template layout. I always tell people that it's not about the templates. Don't get obsessed about, oh, do you have this template or do you have that template or you don't have this number of templates. It's all about how much power and flexibility are within the modules themselves. That's where the gold is. And so I hope that explains it a little bit better, but yeah, it's been a little bit of teeth pulling, especially as themes were introduced of just people not understanding exactly what was going on. But that's how I like to describe it. I was just going to point to your focus. And I think focus in terms of a service offering, whether it's myself, really focused on just providing this theme, or your agency really starting to put a stake in the ground and say, no, we're going to start moving really towards becoming HubSpot experts in all of these categories. And we're going to let, anything else kind of start to pitter away. I think that more and more people, at least in my experience, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a group or a agency that is hyper-focused in one area. So it's music to my ears to hear you say that you're really trying to lean into this. I don't want to call it a niche. It's not really a niche, but kind of. It's just it's a focus on this platform and what it can do for your customers, your clients.
So I guess now's probably a good time. I was going to lead on things about improving website performance, but maybe we'll do that and then we'll come back to what are the areas for improvement within HubSpot as a good segue. So Kevin, what are some of your things that you've seen that can help improve website performance for people that are using HubSpot or even not using HubSpot or considering using HubSpot?
Hands down, whenever I get asked this question, and believe you me, I get asked a lot, probably like the both of you do. The first thing when trying to think through, okay, I have my website and have these pages and I want to actually improve the performance. First thing you got to ask yourself is, what am I optimizing this page for? Because there's really two roads you can go down. And that is, I'm optimizing a page for UX, user experience, or I'm optimizing it for SEO. And those two types of pages are really very different. And so the common mistake or the common request that I get is, hey, here's a link to my homepage. Like, why is it so slow? How can I make this better and actually perform faster and get better results on Google PageSpeed Insights, only to find out that unknowingly they're optimizing for user experience, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's mostly making the decision ahead of time before building a page. And just so I'm clear, when optimizing a page for user experience, things like a homepage, or a landing page where you're sending paid traffic to it, where you have a nice explainer video, big graphics, chat widgets, things that are obviously going to create weight on the page and also at the same time create a very amazing first time brand experience for people reaching that page through either direct traffic or social media campaigns or things like that. On the flip side of that spectrum, if you're optimizing for SEO, meaning page speed is uber important, these are times where I usually recommend, let's focus on the written content. Let's focus on optimized imagery to strengthen that content with good alt text, clever keyworded headlines. That would be your H1 title tags with clever keyworded subheadlines and links to other pages, and really trying to have them focus more so on best practices as it is to create awesome organic inbound content, and put aside all of the cool WYSIWYG, ooey gooey features, sliders, and different things that are maybe visually appealing, but aren't going to help with those performance aspects of a page. So that's like hands down number one. It's like, what are we doing here? Or are we going for UX or are we going for SEO? Let's make that line in the sand first, and then move towards whatever angle that we're trying to design for. With SEO, the only other thing that I would say is going to be an important piece of that is image optimization. And really dialing in how these images are formatted, their size. HubSpot and what I've done with Clean can definitely help with some of those, but that's only going to take someone so far. So a little bit of that onus is definitely on the person building and or designing the website. With Clean specifically, I'm actually always introducing new performance benefits. HubSpot's been fantastic about introducing new features that help with these. And so staying on top of what they're introducing to the platform so that can be reintegrated into what I'm delivering in the product is something more on, we'll call it the core theme side of the spectrum, which is a little bit more on the complex side, whereas there's still so much room to be had on just what we as contributors or builders of a web page can actually have control over and do when it comes to performance. And that was my long-winded explanation. Is that clear? Are there any other things that you're hearing that have made a big difference for your clients in terms of performance and benefits, whether it's adding things or removing things? Ian, I'm gonna go with you.
I really loved your comment about what's the purpose. I think people often forget that. But yes, it's usually the images, Kevin, that people load in and don't optimize. And they've forgotten the basics, what am I doing here? They've loaded it with too many things, and then they're trying to optimize it for speed as well. So they're generally the things that catch people out when we're talking about speed.
The only other thing that I'll say as it relates to speed and performance is there's always only so much you're going to be able to do and obtain with a robust CMS. By nature, it's going to carry more weight than it would if you had a site completely custom developed from HTML. But the trade-offs just don't make sense in my opinion. A marketer or people on a marketing team, they're not going to want to jump in and edit HTML to have that performance. They want the ease and ability to have a robust CMS to make those changes on the fly. And with that CMS and with the robust theme, there always is going to be that little bit of trade-off. And it's just something to be aware of. And in my opinion, that trade-off's okay because speed of execution versus speed and performance of the website is actually pretty darn important as well.
I think the comment I wanted to make is we often get focused on really small contributing performance, sidetracked by those when actually the main ones are those simple things like images. We've all had that experience where we come back and why is this page so slow? Oh, that's right. Someone's uploaded a 20 meg image file because it's so easy to do. The CMS allows you to, and people don't know. So often it is just training. the best way to improve performance on a website is training content managers. Sure, there's all the other technical things, and we've had themes that are terribly coded and, the poor performance. But assuming you've got a robust theme, it's all about content management, I think. That's the biggest problem we've noticed. I don't know if you've... how are you finding that with... And actually, sorry, one other comment. Well, HubSpot's actually getting better at that because they'll actually optimize images for you, sometimes when you don't want them to, but they'll actually optimize them down for use on the site as well. And also we're seeing a lot more other formats being used as well. Would you agree with that, Kevin? Are you finding that with client sites?
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot that I find, and I don't want to just harp on imagery. It's easy low-hanging fruit is the way that I like to describe it. But there are certainly times where I'll get a request of, hey, why is this so slow? And I'll look at the image, and it's clearly just downloaded from a photo stock library as a high resolution and uploaded straight to the website. And I don't fault anyone for making this. I mean, in most cases, great, there's the image. Great, upload the image. And it's that level of ease that they're already experiencing working within the CMS that they would just expect it to work. And in some cases, it can, to your point about some of the image resizing that HubSpot can do on the fly. But there's also cases where that doesn't necessarily pertain to whatever it is that they're trying to build on the website. So they have to be a little extra cautious. But certainly content creators who are focused on that SEO specifically should be hyper aware of the power that they actually do have to make some pretty solid gains.
Can I ask you about the HubSpot's SEO audit tool? Do you use that on sites?
Yes, I actually do. The thing that I love about it, and this kind of harkens back to a little bit of my own kind of startup product days, the thing that I love that they put in that SEO recommendations tool is how they put the impact and then the technical difficulty score right next to each other, because in my opinion, that's invaluable, because something could have, a high impact and be very highly technical or maybe even infeasible. And it's just easy to not get tripped up on trying to focus too much time there. Go for the low-hanging fruit and focus on those areas. And I love that they provided that level of insight to just help either developers like myself or non-developers understand where they should put their focus first and foremost when leveraging that tool.
Kevin, I wanted to ask you, where have you found CMS hasn't worked for people?
That's a really good question. So in my opinion, the CMS is fantastic for marketing websites as a lead generation tool, landing pages, and blog content or inbound organic content. Fan-friggin-tastic. Where I've seen some customers either email me and ask, hey, I'm trying to do this, can HubSpot CMS do this? It's usually two things. It's either they're better off with a Shopify website because they're either trying to create an e-commerce focused solution and/or website, which HubSpot's not an e-commerce platform. You can certainly add in some of their apps to sync things, but it's not natively a e-commerce platform. So I would always steer people away, or at least have them look in other areas if that's their end goal. The other common one I get has to do with any sort of learning management system or online course creator, where there's other great platforms, whether that's Teachable or Kajabi or things of that nature, which in my opinion, the HubSpot CMS isn't a great tool for. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some great themes and or products out there that will allow you to, accomplish that goal within the HubSpot CMS. But I'm really of the mindset of what's the right tool for the job? Let me go find that tool. And for me, the HubSpot CMS tool is all about lead generation and an incredible front-facing marketing website or experience for their customers. Other than that, the only other thing that comes to mind is when I have someone reach out and they have had either a designer or someone create this beautiful Figma, mocked up websites, and basically kind of a more app-like experience. And again, that kind of falls in more of that app territory. Not impossible to do with HubSpot, to be sure, but not the best tool for the job, in my opinion. Did I miss anything? Is there anything either of you two are hearing that people are either trying to attempt with the CMS and you're like, this is probably not a great fit?
I'll just mention one little thing. This is not a macro. I think it was good you highlighted those two macro areas, learning management and e-commerce. Where we sometimes hit little niggles is just simple things, such as our landing pages have multi-step forms. How do you do that in HubSpot? Okay. Requires a bit of custom coding and JavaScript to hide fields. It's not out of the box. I know it's coming. It's on their publicly released roadmap that they're going to do multi-step forms. But it's normally little things like that. So you get caught in the weeds. Oh, it doesn't do this. And it's can be a bit of a death by 1,000 cuts. You get 5 or 6 little things and they're like, we'll wait. I think most of those are being removed and we're seeing less of them. But apart from those bigger areas, it's the other thing is just also resourcing. If you've got a very customized design, the number, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, the number of WordPress agencies that you can go to that'll build big enterprise WordPress sites, there's tons of them. I don't think the number of HubSpot partners is as well known. I think it's growing and it's definitely the capabilities there, but finding them can be harder. So that's sometimes an education around available agencies to help with it. That's probably the other area I'm seeing. Ian, are you seeing others?
Yeah, I agree, Craig. I was going to say, what are the areas of improvement or what are the areas that you're most excited about that we can talk about that's coming up in HubSpot CMS, Kevin?
To be honest with you, let me just tell you what some of my wishes are. And let me just start there of what I'm seeing as like, what's the top of the list of things that I would love to see them focus on? They're focused, they have their own roadmap and some of the things I'm privy to, but let's just keep it kind of where I would love to see them go. So if any HubSpotters are listening to this, it's even more fuel for their product roadmap fire. The blog is one area where I think that they can focus even more attention as it relates to their cool drag and drop CMS. One of the things that I would love is more flexibility as it relates to the blog post pages in way of being able to drag and drop, add new modules, things that can wrap the content or give us more flexibility on the post side. Currently, in its current state, it's pretty locked to whatever the blog post template feature contains. But I'd love to see a little bit of effort and energy put there for sure. Some of the other things that that I'm focused on as a theme developer is how can I provide a seamless update experience by way of either improving new modules, introducing new, making more radical changes to the underlying theme code that exists as HubSpot evolves and as HubSpot changes, and creating a way that is actually preventative from any kind of disasters or large issues that customers might be having that might update the theme. So for me, it's like now that we have themes that feels a little bit more fully baked, we have this concept of child themes, which actually makes that whole update process easier. We have the CMS, which is what it is, and it's a pleasure to work with depending on the modules you're using. Now, how can we actually improve upon that experience, over time without disrupting whether it's the actual user experience of using the CMS or the modules, and or at the end of the day, really, people's websites. The third thing that I'll say, and I'll just leave it here, is one of the things, and this I'm just going to vent a little bit. One of the things that I would love to see HubSpot do is a little bit better when it comes to page organization and management within the CMS. We have one long list with all the pages, some pretty cool search tools and filters, but I would love a way to better organize, different pages and different folders to kind of keep track and access all the various pages of my own website, much less, I'm sure clients of your own with hundreds of pages, and being able to manage those a little bit better. Those are really the three areas that have been on the top of my mind, and I've been kind of poking and prodding, HubSpot when I do speak to them about, I would love this and I would love that. But now that I've shared mine, are there anything that's either driving you nuts about the CMS currently, or if you had a magic wand and you're like, poof, this feature exists or it's better, what would that be for the both of you?
Well, let me start. And I don't know whether it's really CMS related, but as marketers, I think, Kevin, they get on with the job, but when you look in the file section, images are everywhere, documents are everywhere, and then it often becomes a really big effort to go, oh, where is that? Or there's multiple versions of it because they haven't organized their file structure correctly. And I don't know whether this is something that can be done as a default, like, okay, have the images directory, have a system folder, have all of these where people put their assets into. So that's something that I wish I could quickly clean up for a number of people on the HubSpot side. But I don't think that this is going to be something that's just a HubSpot problem. It's probably a problem everywhere. But yeah, it's something that often comes up.
Yeah, I can imagine the idea of having like folder structure templates, when it says create folder, or if it said create folder set, and you just go, here's a template that we use for websites, or here's one we use for blog listings. Because you're right, blog images are the worst. They just go into the root folder and it becomes a mess. My comment is, and it kind of relates to the CMS, but the whole power of HubSpot is it can cover a number of hubs. So you can have your website, you can actually have your support site and a knowledge base and things like that. And I'm puzzled that the website pieces seem to be using a different engine or a different approach than, say, knowledge base articles and even your ticketing, your support site. And so it just seems odd that you can't have, I'm actually going to buy a marketplace theme, and here's the template, or here's the theme that applies to my knowledge base articles, and here's to my customer portal for tickets. It's like, why are these separate? And there's definitely no kind of drag and drop builder aspect to those as well. It seems odd. It's almost like two different teams have worked on these features, and I'm like, why? This is the whole power of HubSpot, this all in one. So I find that odd. I don't know if that's going to change. And even then, I don't think they use the same file system anyway. So you've got different things almost in different file folders again. So that seems odd. It's the kind of thing I think they will fix, knowing HubSpot, but I have no knowledge of that. I don't know what the approach is. Is that anything? Have you ever come across that? You're purely just landing pages and web pages, Kevin?
No, definitely. In my own use cases, whether it's using the knowledge base feature of their service hub, which I leverage, I like it a lot, but I also dislike it for everything that you've just mentioned. It feels like there's a lack of cohesion, between someone's website and then what would be their knowledge base. Also, I know that HubSpot has recently released a new feature called memberships, which frankly, I have little experience at this point with. However, I'm excited to kind of get in and play with this. And that's yet another kind of new feature that they're starting to roll in. And there's pretty limited ability for a theme or a brand kit to actually apply across that, to my knowledge at this point in time. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that being able to wrap everything that would be front facing to a customer in and or under one umbrella is kind of a no-brainer at the end of the day. And so my fingers are crossed that one day they'll start to bring synergy between these different areas of their service offering. But one can be hopeful, Craig.
This is true.
I was going to ask you, Kevin, we've seen the introduction of CMS Starter and now Free, which we played around with. And we know that when Starter came out, I think I might have actually bought your theme for for a customer that we did some work for. So I was an early user of that, and I think I ran into a few little humps along the way. How do you see the progression from now? We're starting with free starter, and then there's a bit of a jump to professional and then enterprise. How are you seeing customers move through that, or where are the points of resistance, and where are the points of we should do this when you see things happening? Because I think you'll probably see a wide variety of customers in your customer base and how they're utilizing CMS.
Sure. At the end of the day, I'm very excited that they're starting to go a little bit broader in their market in terms of who they're trying to bring into the platform. And I think the CMS makes perfect sense, whether it's the starter or whether it's the free plan to get people in and at least understanding what HubSpot has to offer, as opposed to, managing WordPress plugins and themes and all the common frustrations that someone who, in my opinion, would be a great fit for a HubSpot starter or HubSpot free plan. As far as them kind of moving into these lower tier accounts and starting to look up towards the higher end accounts, my hope is that it'll become even more clear at the level of ease over time that one has managing their website through the platform. Whether that's uptime, whether that's not having to deal with updates and the pitfalls that we were talking about earlier. From where I stand as a theme provider, having a premium close to $1,000 theme available, also a light version, a less expensive version of Clean, which is a little bit more bare bones. I've actually been very surprised at the sheer number of customers that have come in on these lower tier CMS plans and not having a problem spending on a more premium theme or a premium product for their website, because they're already getting a pretty darn good deal using the starter plan. And so my hope is some of the features that are being blocked, CTA feature is the one that comes to mind on these freer starter plans. As HubSpot starts to kind of iterate on their product experience to provide better upgrade paths, so that some of these people who are just dipping their toes in the water of HubSpot are like, oh, that could be useful. Like, I use this in one place, whether it's a CTA that gave me the cool tracking analytics, or an A/B testing of one or two or however many amount pages that they want to put that constraint on. I'd love to see them have more opportunity to get people from an early an early user of a starter program or starter plan, into trying these features to kind of get to that aha moment. Like, this is why HubSpot costs so much to be on this plan. And like, I can actually get a lot out of it if I were to use those features. And now I see the value. Maybe I'll kind of upgrade to that, those different service offerings. So I think HubSpot has a little ways to go to really make that a seamless experience for some of these early customers, to make these upgrade paths clear and understandable that there's value to be had. But I'm pretty hopeful that they'll get there.
Can I make a comment on pricing? And I'm interested whether you see this as well. So you said that people will come in on starter, which is very small, minimal monthly cost, and they will happily pay for a premium theme, say $1,000. I'm not as surprised by that as maybe some people will be, because in one of the problems we have with WordPress is people get fixated on the free, but they don't realize, oh, there's hosting. Okay, that is small. Let's say you can host a perfectly good WordPress site for $30. But then increasingly it's the plugins that are annual costs. So you'll have a drag and drop builder plugin for WordPress that you have to buy, and it costs $100 or $200 a year. And I've just had this with a bunch of client sites. I'm like, oh, plugins won't update. Oh, we've actually got to upgrade our subscription. Oh, it's an annual subscription. Oh, that's $149 a year for that one. Oh, and there's another one here that's actually an SEO plugin. I've got it. And so when you actually add it up, the minimal cost of WordPress actually has quite an ongoing annual cost with upgrading plugins. A lot of people don't realize that and don't upgrade, and then wonder why their sites break, by the way. So that's another issue. That's an education issue. So why am I mentioning this? You come back to HubSpot and you're like, well, there's none of those ongoing plugin costs, although I want to flag this for a later question for you. It's a one-off cost. You buy that theme, you're going to get upgrades continually. There's no kind of annual cost. I wonder whether that'll change. But at the moment, it's like, right, come in on starter. That's your only monthly cost. You've paid for your theme and maybe a few actually on starter, you can't buy the modules, but on Pro you can. But it's like, you know your costs and all the updates that happen in the background, not going to break the site. Don't have to be worried about recurring additional expenses that are hidden. So you come in on starter, you buy your premium theme for $1,000 and you kind of know what your costs are. I actually think it works out cheaper and it's less to work out or to consider ongoing. So I probably over-explained that, but do you see that as well? I guess what I'm trying to highlight is this inaccurate focus on costs when actually it's cheaper in the long run just to buy a premium theme on HubSpot.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm always shocked when I get emails from people, which happen maybe every other week, of just that question. Hey, this theme looks great. Is this, recurring? Do I have to pay this every year? And my answer is usually like, I wish. I'd be a pretty rich man. But no, the answer is no. And I think that in my own experience, buying themes or buying products, not being locked into a recurring monthly and or annual payment is actually kind of nice at times. Certainly lower tier services, nice to pay a small monthly, not a problem. But I've definitely found when it comes to a larger product purchase, such as a theme or something that is going to allow you that level of control over probably one of your most valuable assets on the marketing team, which is your website. It seems like for customers that I've spoken to, it's a no-brainer. Once they hear it's not a recurring cost that they're going to have to add on to their monthly HubSpot bill and their Slack, bill or whatever other, recurring cost that they have, it makes it a much easier thing to get into, especially as a lot of the businesses that are customers of mine, they're working with a quarterly budget and, knowing that this can fall right in their quarterly budget and great, never going to have to deal with this again. Yeah, no brainer.
Well, let me ask you then, do you think that's going to change? My slight concern is that HubSpot's always looking for ways to further monetize. And so they're going to consider, well, I'm sure they're already considering, but whether they roll out modules and themes going to subscription models on the HubSpot Marketplace. Do you have thoughts on that?
So, first and foremost, the one thing that I've always been impressed upon as it relates to how HubSpot works with app or asset, that's like themes and modules, developers like myself, is they're very hands-on, again, like I had mentioned earlier, and they're always testing the waters and trying to understand what's going to work for us and our benefit, and also for their customers. Now, surely it would be exciting to have some aspect of a recurring, revenue stream for my own business model. However, I don't know, or I haven't heard anything about that even being a potential option for the HubSpot Marketplace. I think if anything, HubSpot's focus right now is how can we spread, the word of HubSpot and specifically the CMS. I think in part this was one of their partnerships with, is it Envato? It was one of the other kind of theme template sort of companies and opening up themes to be available there as well. So I really think they're trying more so to utilize what's working. And in my opinion, and probably in their opinion, themes, assets, and apps, they're working right now. Now, how can we broaden the appeal for these assets to bring more people into the platform and hence, purchasing these assets or leveraging these apps? So for me, what would get me super excited is probably less about the recurring revenue of an asset, but it's more so a seamless experience for customers so that, if I have this theme And then I have all of these additional kind of add-on extensions, call it modules or whatever it might be, that I can either upsell to specific customers for a specific need that can plug right in. How can there be a kind of micro ecosystem within the greater HubSpot ecosystem? And that's what I would love to see them go towards, more so, because I think it provides more opportunities for people like myself and other theme developers, and an even greater experience for their customers.
Actually, one I'll ask you, this is more just for my interest. With your clean theme purchase, you offer 2 hours of support.
Yep.
Free support for customers. How many people take you up on that?
I would say, if I were just to put a percentage to it, probably between 50 and 60% of people do. So a considerable number. And I encourage it. Like, I'm not like, hey, all right, you say you're going to get these 2 free hours, but see ya. So it's something that has actually been a unique differentiator for me early on. It was one of the things that you start to see like everyone do, but being one of the first people to offer that, it's an opportunity to gain trust and this like touch point with customers to know that, okay, there's going to be things that are going to come up, and at least I'm not going to be charged extra for something little that I want done or to come up. And that's yet another example of, great, I got my fixed costs and I got a little support, should I need it. And I feel happy about that. And then it also allows me to build, better relationships with customers. The other question, just to compound upon that, is I do offer what I call hourly packs. So like someone uses their 2 free hours and they're like, hey, Kevin, I want this other module built. I basically have like these little hourly packs that you can just purchase, and 2-hour pack, 5-hour pack, and so on. So the real interesting thing that I have really strived to do in my own business, building clean, being that it's a very product-oriented business. I provide focused services, but I collaborate with agencies like yours. So if customers need, more hands-on agency-style services, I'll pass them off. So the real question that I find interesting is how many people or how many customers that are leveraging clean end up wanting or needing to use hours outside of that 2 free hours. And that number is even smaller, like literally maybe 20, 25%. And I actually see that as a good thing, because that means what I'm continually introducing into the theme itself, or what I'm able to do with the time provided, is exactly what they need, and they don't need to spend more. And so it kind of doesn't make sense from a business model perspective not to want to sell additional services. But for my case, if the product's doing the work and the product is selling, then I'm doing the job that I've set out to do. And so that's the other number that I kind of really keep a keen eye on.
That's interesting. First of all, I'm surprised 50 to 60%. That seems high to me. I thought you were going to say hardly anyone ever does, but I'm glad that they do. What are the main things they ask for help with? I'm interested. What's kind of the top things that people, just need that initial hand with?
Sure. So part of the value that I provide as someone kind of in this HubSpot ecosystem and community as it stands is really an unparalleled level of support. So if someone has a question of like, how do I do this, or what can I do to achieve this goal? I love the whole concept of teach someone to fish rather than give them a fish. And so I always take the standpoint of like, if there's something that I can just show you how to do and give you a Loom video or create a tutorial, like I am very much in the mindset of let me do that, because one, it could either help that person, or if I'm creating greater content, it can help someone who's just finding me on YouTube or one of my tutorial videos on my website. But when it comes down to those customers that are actually like, okay, no, we need this customized and we want to leverage these 2 free hours, it's usually something that is pretty specific to their use case. So a great example of this is a customer that I was working with. They wanted me to create a pricing slider. You know those little like things you go to the pricing page, you're like, how many contacts do you have? And you slide the thing over and then all the numbers change. That was a really good example of them, wanting something that was very specific to their business model, their pricing model. And so those are fantastic because I can take some of the core that is within the theme and the modules and then just either add to it in certain cases, or in their case, basically create something, with the logic that is to their spec. And so that's one end of the example. The other end is, hey, I just want someone to jump in and add our fonts and add our, brand colors and things like that, which I always say, like, here's a video. This is something you could totally do yourself. If you really want to use the time for me to do that, I can. But like, let me do more heavy lifting. This stuff's easy. Just, have a go at it. Does that answer your question? I mean, for the most part?
Yeah, I was just interested. I thought there might be things like, every single time people ask this, but I imagine over the years, you're like, well, if you're getting the same question, you change, you probably create a video for it, or you change the product.
No, honestly, part of the iterative cycle that I take is if I start to hear the same thing over and over again, once it hits 3 customers emailing me, I'll add it. Like it'll go on my backlog or get prioritized, and it'll get introduced as a theme update. And that's one thing that I'm very forthcoming about. So if, you, Ian, were like, hey, can, I have this feature added to the pricing module or whatever it might be. And if that's something that I've either already, heard a couple times, I'll be like, you know what? Winner, chicken dinner. I'm getting this added to the theme and you can expect it in 2 weeks, right? No charge. I don't want to waste your time when it's going to get rolled in. And that's just something that I take a very integral, if that's a word. I have a lot of integrity when it comes to, working on the product or working with customers. So I wouldn't want to be like, sure, Ian, that's going to cost you X amount of dollars. And, sure, I'll work with that. And then it shows up in the product, in a month. So, I usually work mostly on a very specific use case basis.
Kevin, I'm just curious, like we've got so many different people using HubSpot, right? Who are the kinds of people that are looking at your theme, and then who are the people that are interacting with you and then purchasing the theme, and then what happens after that?
It's really become a lot more broad over the years, and so while I would love to have one target persona that I could be like, this is who buys my theme, ultimately it's separated into 4 categories. First and foremost, just the marketer, and so typically these are, whether they're solo marketers at a small or medium-sized business, and they literally are the marketing team, all the way up to smaller marketing teams, whether it's, 3 to 10 people that are, on the marketing team and trying to leverage the HubSpot platform. So you got marketers on one end. The other end, especially over the past like 2 or 3 years, would be entrepreneurs, people that are hands-on with their business and with their website. They could own, a local gym. They could own, an accountancy or a range of different, small businesses, and they're a single co-founder. Maybe they have another co-founder and they're just trying to run at putting up their website. The third would be designers. So if there's whether it's a freelance designer or someone that runs, their own small business that services clients on a kind of lower end scale, that is just doing the migration work, whether that's from WordPress to HubSpot or just building a new site. I work with a lot of designers as well. And then the fourth are organizations and agencies like yourselves, and people who are actually servicing clients at a much higher level and being a lot more hands-on with their clients, who are leveraging the HubSpot CMS and doing work on their behalf. So it's really those 4 categories that I'm hyper focused on. And agencies like yourselves, I have my affiliate program so that there's some level of reciprocity if you refer clean to your clients. But also it's being able to look at each of those different segments and asking myself, like, okay, what do they need this product to do that's going to help them excel with their business and almost more importantly, with their clients. And that answer is usually pretty different asking you two versus asking a marketer who's, running a marketing in a startup, what that would be for them. And so really it's about taking a lot of that input and trying to make it cohesive such that I'm not building so hyper specific for agencies like the two of yours, such that it doesn't make sense for the common marketer and so on and so forth. So it's a lot of synthesization. Gosh, I'm using big words and I shouldn't be. It's about synthesizing a lot of that input and making sense of it from a product perspective.
Great. Now, how often, so I guess there's probably two things in here. I know you have a pretty regular schedule for releasing updates, right? And often people can forget, I've got the theme and maybe I should actually update the theme and see what new features there are that I can implement. What is your recommendation in terms of how often people should A, be checking, but B, trying out new features and looking to improve their site over time?
I'm a firm believer in always trying to stay up on releases, whether that's, with a theme or, if you are still using WordPress, those plugins and platforms. Coming from my WordPress days, like I have been bitten in the butt so many times by like not keeping up with updates. So when it comes to everything that I'm doing with HubSpot, I'm trying to really keep a pretty routine cadence, which is usually every, say, 2 weeks. Sometimes it can get stretched out to every month now that a lot of the dust with HubSpot's new themes and child themes has settled. And so if I can create that regular cadence of expectation, so whether it's you and your team or any other customers, they're like, oh, cool, it's been a couple weeks, let's see if there's a new update. Being frequent with those will help prevent those scorched earth moments from actually happening, from jumping from like a very, very early version to like a much, later version where there's like a year or two gap. There's a lot of changes that can happen in those periods of time. So I've been very happy that HubSpot has improved their own notification system. So when there is a theme update, everyone gets notified through the HubSpot platform and through emails. And so they've been doing their part as well to help kind of mitigate potential problems and to ensure that people are actually updating. And I'll give a special kind of warm thank you to a lot of the HubSpot team because HubSpot has their own approval process. So it's not like I can willy-nilly just, okay, let's throw an update out there to the universe and, cross my fingers and hope for the best. There's actually a process that validates, any new code. The HubSpot team, someone actually has to go through and manually go through that approval process. So the rigidity of some of their processes has definitely helped with making sure that customers can confidently keep their theme updated and whatnot. So yeah, keep your themes updated, people. It's going to help you.
I'll just say I like that. Whenever I get that notification, I actually just update. I don't even think about it. In fact, I would like an auto update, portal by portal, maybe not all portals, but definitely our own. Just auto update. I'd love that. One thing, I guess, and this does separate HubSpot from, say, WordPress. One advantage with WordPress hosting is you can take daily backups and you can roll back to yesterday's site at a site level. Whereas on HubSpot, you can't. There's no sense of, I'll roll it back to where it was yesterday. Sure, there's page revisions at a page level, but at a theme, it's very hard to roll back. And not that we've ever needed to, but that is one thing that I know IT managers maybe perhaps think about. How do I roll back? Where's my backup from a week ago? Oh, something went out. There's no sense of that. But there hasn't needed to be really. But I wonder if, I guess what I'm thinking as I go here is auto update would be great, but there's no chance to roll it back. So maybe that's why why it's maybe not automatic.
Yeah.
Are there other reasons why you wouldn't have it automatically update, especially now that we have child themes?
Well, just to clarify, so there isn't a built-in way where you can say, roll back the theme or like just roll back to the prior version. However, HubSpot can do this. You have to contact them, and there has been cases early when themes were introduced where customers had to roll back to a prior version. So it can be done. It's just not accessible from customers on the front end. Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I love the concept of auto updates, especially if it's an opt-in option. I don't think it should necessarily be an opt-out option, but if you were to go in where you would normally click install update and be like opt-in to auto install, I love that feature as so long as you and or the customer has some level of agency over that, which can be toggled on or off. If I were to play devil's advocate, the only thing that I would be cautious of in any sort of auto application for updates would be anything changing. Now, HubSpot safeguards a lot of this quite well. But I wouldn't want to be in the circumstance where something changed unknowingly to a customer's website or account. And it could be a change that's perfectly fine. But suddenly, a marketing manager or the CEO is like, what the heck's going on? I would be careful or cautious of those sorts of things happening. But again, that goes back to the idea of like, if I can toggle this on or toggle this off, it would be a really useful feature to have, especially because I get reached out by people all the time that might be on a super early version and they're wanting to leap ahead 30 or 40 versions. And like, I'm a little trepidatious around, doing something like that. So yeah, I will second that idea, Craig. Absolutely.
I wonder if down the track there'll be a sense of major and minor versions even. So auto update minor versions, but then a major version is handled separately. I mean, we'll see. I think one of the things with your theme is that it's continual incremental improvements. So there's well, you tell me, but I've never felt there's a sense of, this is a massive change, major revision, apart from maybe going to a theme-based, or maybe child themes, I think was possibly one thing, but it is always incremental improvements. Or do you have a sense of, I'm actually going to do a massive new version next year and you've got things in mind that wouldn't be part of an incremental release?
So short answer is yes. However, since I've been doing this for so long and HubSpot's evolved for so long, I had been doing, I've been micro improvements over the course of a year to a year and a half, and then I'll do a large kind of sweeping improvement. And that's kind of the reason that I've gotten to what would be considered clean 6.2 is like the front facing, version number. And that's really just because I've been doing it for almost, 6.5 years. Now that themes has been introduced and the way that HubSpot has really started to move more towards this experience of custom modules as a subset of a greater theme, I am taking a lot more of an approach to these theme updates. So there isn't, some big jarring, release that could interrupt someone's website. Now that's especially important nowadays because the theme update process is so much better than it was back before themes existed. It's just, it's seamless. It's literally one click, you get all the new stuff. And so taking that approach has had me actually take a lot more thoughtful approach when considering larger updates. And frankly, I think HubSpot CMS and how they treat themes has a few more steps to evolve before I can actually do a much larger sweeping change to some of the underlying code and modules and feel confident in being able to do so. And so I'm hopeful that's to come maybe next year. I'm not really sure. I'm confident with the trajectory that I see them on, that they're going to start to address these problems now that they have all these themes in the market, and they're like, great, these people want to keep these updated, and there's going to be bigger changes. So how can we make this seamless? And so, yeah, one can hope.
No, I think that's it. We did have some questions, Kevin, around how has, well, I guess this is like away from clean and HubSpot, more about how has HubSpot changed your life?
It's funny because I entered the story of how I got started kind of kicking and screaming going into HubSpot. And the reason that it's really changed a lot of kind of how I treat my own business and just my life in general is the fact that I can honestly be anywhere in the world now and continue to support this product, meet interesting people like the both of you, work with customers from around the world, and create a pretty awesome low overhead business as a result of working and building products for this platform. I mean, it's allowed me to buy a really nice house here in Austin, Texas. It's allowed me to have the freedom to really live my life where and how I want, and that's something that it's been really cool at this point in my life. And I'm in my mid 40s, and I've had an agency and run teams and had startups with tons of employees and kind of being locked in these different areas. And so to be in this position I'm at today, where I can be nimble and I can really take an approach to my own lifestyle that is rewarding for me and my family. It's HubSpot, and continually working on this product for the platform has really allowed me to unlock that. And quite frankly, I have to remind myself of that because I've been doing this for so long, not just Clean and HubSpot, but web development as a whole, that I can get a little like, yeah, it is what it is. But it is pretty cool to be in this day and age and to be able to to work from my cool home office and take my laptop wherever I want to go and not miss a beat. Good question.
I always love asking people, what are the 3 tools that you're using daily that has actually made a difference to your workflow or your life?
That is a good question. Let me think about that for just a moment. One of the tools that I've started using is ClickUp. I'm not sure if you're familiar with ClickUp. It's a kind of productivity product management tool. I've been using Trello for eons and still use it a little bit, but I started to move things over to ClickUp. And it took a little while to just understand the product as a whole, but now that I started using it, it's great. It's where I manage my own backlog and organize my priority list for Clean, customer requests. I have my own personal YouTube video stuff in there. And so that's just one of those systems that's just, it's built to be flexible, and that's why I love it. And I'm seeing more and more tools like that where it can really do a lot of things, and they allow you different templates for specific things that you might want to do. So certainly that's one of them. Okay, here's another cool one. This is more of like an app utility. It's called Hover. I think it's called Hover. And I have multiple monitors. So I have my laptop and my larger screen. And Hover gives me the ability to only focus on the application that I'm working in, and everything else kind of grays out, or there's a little dark overtone over everything else, which is kind of cool. And you can set it to whatever opacity level, but I have tons of browser windows open and little applications here, and where I can kind of narrow in my focus to what I'm working on. That's been a cool little utility. And the last thing, and I'm going to go analog for you here, if you're open to that. And you guys can see this, but I have this little wooden block. It's called the analog. And it's this little system that allows you to put your to-dos, where you write out your little to-dos, what you want to accomplish for the day. That just sits right on my desk. Every morning I come in, write out what I want to accomplish for the day. And as I'm going through, it's just this really nice, satisfying way to be we'll just fill in that bubble or cross that out. And I'm able to just feel like I've accomplished something with this simple, stupid little action of writing something out and then crossing it out. And it's little things like that where I live in the digital world, like the two of you and probably everyone listening. But it's trying to pull myself out into the analog world now and again, which feels really good. All right. Okay. So
I totally get that.
I've shared mine. I've shared my 3. I would love to know each of you two. What are some of your favorite apps or favorite tools that help you be more productive or more efficient in your day?
Well, talking about analog, Craig and myself have been using this. It's called a Hobonichi planner. And so we write in there every day, and it's something like you rightly said. I turn off all notifications, and I write what I'm gonna do, and actually write what I'm grateful for. And I haven't done this for a while, so it's a good reminder to myself to be thankful for what we have today, because we have everything we need to get stuff done today, right? And I think if we go looking and thinking, oh, I wish I had this, or I don't have enough to do that, but we actually have what we need for today. And just understanding and being grateful and thankful has made such a difference in my life. And so often you probably would have heard, I'm actually very thankful to have Craig and people like you in our lives, in our daily lives, as we travel this journey of life and business and changing people's businesses and lives through what we do. So that's been a big thing for me.
I love that. Thank you for mentioning the gratitude part too. It's one of those things that I do my best to practice. And whenever I do, I feel just great about the day. And sometimes I'll fall off the map and like forget for a little while and, be in a little bit of a funk. But as soon as I can get back into it, it just makes all the difference in the world. So thank you for the reminder, Ian. I appreciate that.
And I guess something online, which I totally didn't know, but Craig was showing me, is we all use browsers and have lots of tabs open, is creating profiles for your different spaces. I think that's going to change
Chrome profiles.
Chrome profiles.
I'm very analog like you, Kevin. So you can probably see all my books. I read a lot of books, but I read them in, physical format, which I think is, well, maybe it's an age thing. I'm in my 50s now, so maybe I'm just used to it. Maybe if I was younger, it'd be all on a Kindle or things like that. And like Ian said, I write all my goals for the day in writing in our little planners. But tools that we use Teamwork, which is probably, if we were starting over now, we would use ClickUp. I really like it, but we're so invested in Teamwork after all these years that moving wouldn't be an option. But it's Teamwork, HubSpot, G Suite, and Slack. That's basically our lives these days. Those tools, yeah.
And a good Mac to run.
Exactly. Isn't that the truth?
I think this has been so good. It went on a lot longer than I expected. Next time we have a chat, Kevin, I want to chat with you about things like what books do you read? What shows do you watch? All those kind of things. But they can be another catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share. I got lots of those little things, and I'd love to kind of hear about what's inspiring the both of you, not only in the business realm but in the personal realm, which is equally important in this day and age, is to just feel full in our personal lives so that we can actually come to our professional lives with a level of energy and just a level of, just drive that we wouldn't otherwise have if our cups weren't full. So definitely, I'm more than happy to carry on the conversation at a more personal level some other time. But thanks, guys. It was a real pleasure, and I'm happy we got a chance to connect. I'm excited for this episode and to listen back.